Well, good morning, folks. So this morning I want to kind of talk about plants and their substrates, and I'm really amazed. I have a 10-gallon tank with just sand substrate, and I've got I think it's Rotala and some other plants, and then I have some guppy grass in there. But what really is amazing to me is just sand substrate in this Rotala it's really doing very well. And I'm not a plant expert by any means. No way do I claim to be. I have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 planted tanks. And I use a variety of substrates. So in 1, 2, 3 of the tanks, I'm using actual planted substrate, and then in 2 of the tanks, 2 tanks and 1 tub, I'm using the father fish method, literally dirt and then a sand cap. And then I have 2 other tanks that are little small, shrimp and fry tanks that are sand, and they're just sand. That's it. Matter of fact, I pulled the white sand out of this 180 to put as a substrate in those small tanks. But I am really amazed at the difference between the tanks and how well the plants do or don't do. So what I want to do is I'm just going to show you some of my tanks with the different substrates, and I will show you the difference. I've always been a believer or sold on the fact that you got to have a planted substrate. You got to have a planted substrate. So I bought this planted substrate, expensive substrates, and did all that kind of crap and grew plants. And then I started seeing in my feed, this father fish guy. This has been a while back, but so I was really interested in the father fish, and then Patty's Aquatics, and then LRB, and a lot of these folks that are doing natural tanks. Another guy, Lush and Salty's channel, I mean, oh my gosh, he's got some beautiful tanks with beautiful plants. Mine are nothing like that. But with that said, I just kind of want to walk through, my tanks, the different substrate, and you can see the difference in the plant growth. What really amazed me is, my mindset is that you got to have planted substrate, you got to have a dirted substrate, but that's not true. I'm finding that in my little small 10-gallon tank, that just sand is really doing pretty doggone good. I was pretty impressed with it. So I just want to share with you the difference that you'll see. And one particular style substrate does definitely produce more plants, more growth than the others, but they all do pretty good, so it's to each his own what substrate you use. But I just want to show you the variety. So let's get to the variety. Let's start with that. So to start off, literally, this is my 40 breeder, and this is really literally my first planted tank. And I've only been doing planted tanks about 3 to 4 years now. Always been scared of live plants because I figure I'd just kill them and why waste the money and all that. Once I got started and started researching and learning, and I was sold on the fact that you got to have planted substrate. So that's what this is. This is as you can see, it's just a regular old planted substrate. They got a little bit of sand mixed in there with it. But as you can see, this is my oldest planted tank, and it's well grown. This Java fern that's in there, he's just a monstrosity, and he's growing everywhere, which is good. So let's move over to my 75 gallon, which is not doing as good as the other. Of course, this tank is a lot newer, and it has the same planted substrate. Excuse me. But the stem plants in here, yeah, they're growing, and they're starting to grow here at the base now. I see some starting to shoot up out of the bottom there, which is a good sign. One thing I'm impressed with is this crypt right here. He's doing fantastic. He's just growing and growing, so I'm liking that. And as you can see, this plant is so easy. It's I call it the octopus plant. I forget the name of it, but you can't kill it, I don't think. That's an easy plant to grow, and I have to keep cutting it because it keeps growing. As you can see, it needs a trim up there on the top. And then just recently, I took this pothos plant that was growing up on top of my tank, and I saw Cleveland from the Fish Corner. He had one in with the water, and I'm like, that's probably a pretty good idea, so let me try it. And I will tell you, you see this little stem right here, and it's sticking out in the bottom. This plant's been in the water for like 3 days now, and that stem was only maybe 1/4 of an inch long. Now look how long it is. I got new leaves growing already up here. There's a new leaf right there already coming out. So even pothos underwater, it's growing fine. So I like that. And plus it gets more light being underwater, because before it's just laying on top of the tank and it doesn't really get all the light. So, but this tank is doing not bad. It's not as good as my other tanks, but so let's take a pause here and we'll swing over to my father fish tanks. So this tank is a father fish style tank with father fish's dirt substrate I bought from him, sand capped, and all these plants you see right here, those are all from seeds, and they're just growing like crazy. And then there's some stem plants in here which are growing like crazy. I got a bunch of floating plants. You see the roots coming down, and there's what do you call that, jungle bell in the back. And as you can see, there's a giant anubias in the back as well. And you know, this tank, it grows like crazy. So let's look at my 20 gallon. So my 20 gallon down here, now I have literally tried to rip out all of the guppy grass because it filled this whole tank. You couldn't even see side to side, front to back. So I've started sticking stem plants in the ground in the front here and trimming things around, and there's still some guppy grass in here, but this planted tank is growing very well as well. Like I say, I've had to trim it all back, and I have a bunch of floaters up on the top as well. And so in my opinion, and I'm just saying that from what I see in my own tanks, the father fish dirted tanks definitely have the growth outcompetes all my other tanks. But to each his own style, I guess you say, because some people just don't want to do the dirty tank. And me, I was kind of nervous about it, but no problem. I did it, and I'm happy I did it. Eventually I will go all dirted, but it's going to take time to maneuver things around. So let's look at I have a dirted tub as well. Let's go take a look at it. So this here is just a regular old Walmart tub, but I did the father fish dirted method in the bottom. And let's see if we can kind of see. That is the bottom. It's dirt with sand cap on it, black sand, and it's planted as well. And this tank is just going like crazy as well. I mean, I got all sorts of stuff growing in here. There's wood down there in the bottom. I got some rice fish fry in here. There's duckweed all up, but not duckweed, but yeah, there's probably duckweed in here, but frog bit, floating on here, and it's just growing like crazy as well. But this tank is definitely going very good. So let's get to the tank that kind of amazes me, that kind of goes against everything that I thought I knew about planted tanks. And let's go look at my little 10-gallon with sand in the plants that are growing in it. Okay folks, so this is my 10-gallon shrimp tank. And like I say, this is just a white sand substrate. There's no dirt. I don't use fertilizer or anything like that. It's just sand. And you know, I stuck this guppy grass in there, and there's some of that octopus plant in there. But I originally stuck one of this pieces of rotala in here. And as now, as you can see, there's several of them in here because I keep cutting it. As soon as it hits the top, I cut it off and it stick it in the sand, and it grows like crazy. And there's also some of these little, I don't know what kind of plant these are, these little green ones. I just throw them in the substrate and the stuff is just growing. And you can actually see, like this rotala, it was cut off right there, but you see it shot to the right and shot to the left. And it was cut off again right there, as you can see, and it growed again. And I just keep cutting, and it just keeps growing, and I'm pretty impressed with it. It kind of went against everything that I thought I knew about substrates and plants, but I've learned that you don't absolutely have to have a planted substrate. I also know that, you know, doing the father fish method for sure has produced much more growth and than any of the other tanks, but I still am totally surprised, you know, with the sand and the growth of these plants. They just keep growing. Eventually what I want to do is just get rid of all of the guppy grass out of here and just have rotala and whatever these little things here are that seem to be growing pretty good. And, you know, all my little shrimps and celestial pearl Daniels that are in here. And eventually I want to try to start breeding the celestial pearl Daniels. That may be a little challenge for me. I mean, they shouldn't be that difficult to do, but this tank is so crowded with plants, it's kind of hard to set up what I need to do, because they could put their eggs anywhere basically. And I suspect that the shrimp, which I have a ton of in here, would end up eating the eggs if they run across them. So anyhow, that is my thought on sand substrate and planted tanks, and just let me know what your thoughts are. Like I said, I'm not a plant expert by any means, but I've learned over the course of the years that I don't have to have expensive planted substrate. I can use sand and it seems to work. It may not be as fast as a planted substrate, or we'll say the father fish dirted method, but it does work. And so that's my spiel for the day. Anyhow folks, I hope you enjoyed this, and hope you learned a little bit that sand does work. If you already know that, well, just like, share, and subscribe. That's all I can ask. Anyhow, y'all have a great week, and thank y'all for watching. Bye-bye.